Let's start things off in the ACC. It's the game that was supposed to be the ACC championship matchup that, according to the preseason polls, the Tigers held up their end of the bargain, punching a ticket to Charlotte last week. But down in Coral Gables, they're preaching patience. Okay, so this one isn't what many thought it would be, but a game still has to be played, which means anything can happen. So let's welcome in Anna Adams of Clemson 24/7 and the owner of Inside the U, Chris Stock. Guys, in addition to that is the backdrop for this matchup. Clemson seemingly out of the playoff race, which is, of course, the standard for a Dabo Swinney squad. So all of that considered, you're there, boots on the ground. What is each team playing for on Saturday? Anna, kick it off.
Well, I think Clemson right now at 9-1, they want to have another 10-win season and then finish strong. You know, you get through Miami, beat South Carolina at home the following week, and then you have a chance to play against, potentially a top 10 UNC team, a one-loss UNC team, and an Orange Bowl berth. And then who knows? I mean, maybe there's some chaos. Some games go your way, and maybe you do sneak into the playoff. I don't think you can totally write that off right now. So Dabo Swinney said this week, last week it was all about handling adversity, coming off the loss at Notre Dame. This week it's all about handling success after defeating Louisville. And he even said earlier this week in his press conference, maybe we get hot, play our best ball going down the stretch, and who knows.
And for Miami, they're just looking for something positive for this season, whether it's this week or next week. Certainly beating Clemson would be a huge deal for Miami. 5-5 overall, 3-3 in the ACC. They beat Georgia Tech. There's just been a lot of disappointing results this year, from Middle Tennessee State loss, Duke loss, the 45-3 blowout to Florida State. So beating Clemson would even mean more than it typically would in a season full of disappointment. And also, Miami's gotten blown out in this game when they've played Clemson the last 3 times. So it would be a huge statement game for Miami to go win at Clemson in a disappointing season. They're looking to find some kind of positives, whether it's at the quarterback position, but really it's just about results right now. Once again, a lot of disappointing things going on, not a lot of hope for Miami going into this game. So they're looking to surprise some people.
Love it. You can never rule out chaos in the college football season. Meanwhile, the Hurricanes may have found something in Ja'Carri Brown. The quarterback has stepped in for the injured Tyler Van Dyke, put up some solid numbers last week. So, Chris, how do you evaluate his play and really his future with Miami?
It's certainly a really interesting topic with him stepping in, enters the season as a number 3 guy. He gets that opportunity, plays in Georgia. That's where he's from Valdosta there, former 4-star recruit in the 24/7 Sports composite rankings. So he goes out, gets his first start, and does well. 14-19, 136 yards, 3 touchdowns. Nothing big on the passing numbers, but the passing touchdowns were very important. And Miami's had a couple games this year where they didn't even score 1 touchdown in that single game. So to do that, it's a good stepping stone for him. Also adds 87 yards on the ground on 19 carries. There's a lot of excitement about what Ja'Carri can bring, and it's going to be very interesting. And Coach Cristobal is not being definitive in terms of if they're going to stay with Tyler Van Dyke if he's healthy. He's not naming a starter going to this one. I don't expect anything to be named before the game starts, so you definitely have to pay attention to that. But just there's a lot of excitement and maybe some hope with Ja'Carri, not just for the rest of this season, but maybe jumpstart into next year. Maybe he will be the Hurricanes starting quarterback in 2023. For a team that doesn't have a lot to play for in terms of standings and all those kind of things, it's very interesting to watch what happens with Ja'Carri's development just in these final few games. It's not like Ken Dorsey stepping in 99, but you just want to see something positive, and he certainly brings a lot of excitement, and his dual threat ability is real. So we'll see how he does in this tough game against Clemson.
Yeah, you heard Chris roll through some of those impressive stats from last week against Georgia Tech. So Anna, on the other side of things, how do they slow down this guy?
I think if I'm Miami, I'm playing Brown against Clemson. You turn on the tape of Clemson this year, and they've sort of struggled against dual threat quarterbacks. I know Brown had some design runs last week against Georgia Tech that he kind of popped off, had some scrambles as well. And Clemson overall just hasn't defended the run consistently this season. So, one thing I think to look at is Clemson looked good against the run last week against Louisville, but that was with going against not a full strength Malik Cunningham in the first half, and then he didn't play in the second half. So I think Clemson would like to build upon last week's performance and show, hey, last week wasn't a fluke. We can defend the run. We can defend a running quarterback, no matter, who's in the game.
All right. If Miami is to pull off that upset. A fast start, setting the tone early, absolutely crucial. The same goes for Clemson's efforts to not let that happen and to take control of the game. So how does each team dictate control? Chris, lead us off with the U.
Yeah, Miami has really struggled, start of games. Last week it worked out well for Georgia Tech. They get out to a 14-0 lead. In a couple of these games, they were able to kind of stay in control. And I think for a team that's really struggling to find a lot of positives, that's important to them. I think they've had a couple games this year where not only did they lose in the game, but they just never led in the game. They did that for 3 straight losses. They just never led. And I think for a team looking for confidence, whether it's Jakari at quarterback, those young guys that they have in there, I think it would be a big statement for them. I think they could feel good about themselves. Just don't get down early, because this is a team that can certainly get blown out, as we've seen this year, and really fall behind. And I think getting off to a good start would be big. And certainly any kind of positive momentum, even if it's a defensive stop. Look, if they're able to stop Will Shipley, or they keep DJ under control, just any type of positive early on in the game, tough environment. Miami did have the experience of playing in a tough environment at Texas A&M. That was a 17-9 game. Didn't get blown out there. I know you're looking at some moral victories type things, but these are the kind of things you point to. Another thing I want to point to also, Miami is actually 3-0 in the conference on road games. They're 0-3 at home, so it's one of those weird stats, but Miami seems to play a little bit better on the road, and we'll see. But certainly getting off to a good start, finding some positives, whether it's offensively or defensively.
Yeah, when you're playing a team with nothing to lose in terms of postseason play, really, no one's expecting Miami to win this game. The last thing you want is to let them feel like they can hang in the game for a while. So for Clemson, I think it's just coming out strong at home. Like I just mentioned, Miami's been awesome on the road this season. So not letting them gain confidence from that early. And then for Clemson, if you do get up in the second half, I would not be surprised to see Dabo Swinney keep the gas on and maybe go for some style points. I mentioned that potentially you could sneak into the playoff, and maybe a blowout win this week could sort of help you in the committee's eyes there. And then also not only style points, but I think Dabo is still trying to instill a killer instinct into this team. There's been a couple of instances this season where Clemson has gotten up in the second half, looked like they were going to cruise to an easy victory, only to let the other team come back into the game. So I think that you'll see, if Clemson does get ahead by a few touchdowns, I don't think you'll see them just try to run off the clock. I think you'll see them continue to try to pile on the points.
A lot of great information there, guys. Thank you so much. Keep it locked in to Clemson 24/7 and Inside the U for all things Clemson and Miami all season long.